Hey guys, on this episode of EdTech, we're going to be covering HDMI 2.1, the AVNation Alliance, and we're going to be putting modular amps where? Find out more on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech episode 49. You want to put that amp where? Recorded on January 12th, 2017. This episode of EdTech is brought to you by our fine underwriters like FSR.
This is EdTech.
Welcome to this month's episode of EdTech. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell. I'm joined today by Ernie Bailey.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bailey. And as well, our illustrious fellow, Mr. Mike Tomei. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So, if anything, we are kind of getting back from winter break. Everyone's kind of been working on projects in between the semesters and everything, and it's been kind of fun if you enjoy pulling cabling while no one's around. Which, if things go wrong, once again, no one's around. So there's all that kind of fun stuff. But we have a couple of articles, and then we'll probably talk about some of the projects that have been going on during the break and everything. So the first article I'm going to go over, it's actually from, let's see here, it's off of AV Network. And specifically, it's them talking about how the HDMI forum have actually announced the 2.1 specification. Now, if you go through the article, it's them defining that there's a new 48G cable. There's also going to be allowing them to run 4K and 8K. And it's them kind of setting the specifications for the going forward with high HDR and 8K and things like that. But if you really read into it, it kind of seems to me like they said, "Hey, look, we finally found a cable that can do 4K without any issues." Mike, what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah. So it looks like the big changes for them, like you mentioned, the resolutions. They're saying that this version 2.1 can include resolution up to 8K 60. So thank God I don't have any clients requesting 8K 60 in their rooms right now. We haven't crossed that bridge yet. But yeah, it looks like they're really trying to push ahead here with HDMI because there's always talk of other connectors kind of making their way in, USB-C or
yeah, you have this interesting mix in which there's me who used to came from the DoD world will look at things and say, oh, how big's the data rate? Yeah, just go fiber. But then again, when it comes to government work and when it comes to military and federal, yeah, of course they're going to go fiber because for them it also has a built-in security with it, and so they can just go and say, yeah, we'll buy X amount of fiber. When it comes to say an auditorium, yeah, you can probably get away with fiber, but when it comes to a smaller classroom, yeah, you're still going to be doing things with say HDBaseT, or you're still going to be doing stuff through HDMI and things like that. So you're right. You hit the nail on the head. USB-C that's turning into a wonderful breakout world. Mostly, if you've not dealt with it, just recently Apple had the new laptops that have just the one USB Type-C connector, and our entire video production department looked at that and went, "Cool. Hey, where's the docks?" And our IT department went, "What docks?" And so, yeah. It's wonderful. Thank goodness there's at least a Wi-Fi adapter. There's a Wi-Fi module built into the thing. But otherwise, they all looked and said, "Cool, we're now doing a mass buying of the docks and everything." It's once again, it's great. The USB Type-C has a wonderfully high data rate, but at the same time, it's one cable. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, carry your pile of adapters and dongles and things like that. So,
I think that's how Apple's going to start making their money now. From now on.
That's how they've always done it.
Yeah, $30 a pop, whatever it is. Yeah.
Three identical looking Mac laptops, notebooks, and they've all got different connectors on them.
Yeah.
And none of them are HDMI or
yeah,
anything you've got in your collection.
Yeah, they'll look and they go, oh, well, it's Thunderbolt. And you look and you go, well, it's mini DisplayPort. And then you plug it in, and all of a sudden, sometimes, like, it depends. Sometimes it's worked. Other times they go, no, it's this is how it goes. And you're like, can't we pick on an actual standardization here? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Ernie, what do you say about about this wonderful HDMI 2.1 goodness?
Well, it's good that, like you said, we have a cable that will be able to carry the signals. We're just putting in an infrastructure for 4K. We're not putting in 4K devices at this time. We're not seeing any source material that we need on our campus that's 4K. So why do I need to push it? But it's good to see it before we need it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm totally in the same camp with you on that one. Infrastructure-wise, all our video switchers, infrastructure-wise, we're set for 4K. Yeah. But to date, I think the only department, and I have a love-hate relationship with them in which they love our equipment. I hate having to install the equipment, is our art department. And that's mostly just because for them it's, well, we need to have this high resolution. And then all of a sudden it turns into, well, we need to have high contrast. And I go, well, wait a minute, guys.
Which one?
Which one? Well, can't we recalibrate this? And I go, no, we tend to kind of keep things like factory default. Not saying that factory default is the utmost best, but if we have to swap it out, it's an easy, these days, if we have a projector go down in a classroom, it's not even a 5-minute swap out.
Right.
So in terms of 4K, I'm happy to see that we have a piece of copper that allegedly, because once again, these are all specifications. I haven't seen the physical cable yet, but I like the idea that we'll actually have a piece of copper that will actually be able to handle this. Now, whether or not that cable is going to look like a garden hose.
Right.
The cable's bigger than the connector.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. When Crestron originally first came out with their HD-based T stuff, and it was the DM cable, and they're like, oh, it's all in one cable, right? There was the D cable, there was the M cable, and then there was the reused CrestNet cable, and I totally understand where they were coming from because they literally just got the chipset and they're like, all right, we have to go and make this work. I'm not knocking them for it so much as if you tried to pull that cable. If I felt vindictive on the job site and everything, I could have pulled an extra length of the cable, snipped it, and used that as like a construction grade cat of nine tails. It was a monstrous cable. Oh yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see how big this cable is going to be for the HDMI 2.1 specifications, and then the other part of it is kind of seeing where HD-based T is going to go with their stuff in order to meet these things. Yeah. Because, HD-based T is going to go and say, oh, no, we can carry that much data. Okay. And, then it's going to turn into, once again, this is going to be my question of, okay, who's going to start implementing things like the Cat 7 specifications? And yes, there is Cat. I've seen Cat 7A, and I pray I never have to terminate that cable because it's an individually shielded. It's a shielded cable of I don't even want to go that far. Yeah. And
a lot of this stems from like kind of consumer use too, where everything is a 6-foot HDMI cable between a cable box and a TV and a Blu-ray player and TV, and it's all right there. When you start to dive into our world where we have to get signals hundreds of feet away from a source up to a projector booth or something, then it's a whole nother animal, right?
Yeah, so, it's one of those things that just kind of going forward. It's why when we're pulling cable with our jobs, normally we end up pulling obviously we use we've been using a Cat 6A shielded, but we'll pull 2 additional ones only because. And some folks might know this one. There was the Extron 608D, which was their first foray into extending out digital and everything, and it used 2 shielded cat cables
Yep.
in order to do everything. Now, that's all I'll say about the 608D. But on the plus side, when we had to go back to those rooms and update them to full HD-based T or full DTP, as it would be with some of the updated boxes, really all we did was just end up swapping the boxes and swapping the switcher, which made life easier. So it's one of those things. Once again, I'm kind of curious as to see just how big of a cable we're getting here, but it's good to see that they're being progressive in that realm. So moving on to that, the next article it's from AV Network, but it's an interesting one in which it's talking about in previous episodes we talked about how there's the Blue River chips and how some companies like say Aurora Multimedia have started implementing it, in which it's AV over IP. Well, it's now actually gotten an actual standardization, or it's actually moving forward, and it's become now standardized. It's standard. Let's see here. It's a mouthful. It is the Software Defined Video over Ethernet Alliance.
Yes.
Yeah, SVDOE. But it's interesting to see where this is going because originally you would hear things like, oh, it's voice over internet, or it's voice over IP, or it's one of those things where originally we saw this with the telephones, and now it's kind of hard to go to a campus or go really just about anywhere that has a landline that hasn't gone over to voice over IP. So it's one of those things. I see it as they're hyping it, and they're saying they're going to debut this at ISE in 2017. And they have manufacturers that they've made an alliance with. They're going to show all this off at the show. I'm interested to see this because if they're actually setting up a standardization for this, we could actually see another competitor or another flavor, really, because right now we have HD-based T. I think it'd be interesting to see in which it's all of a sudden it really is going to start being, all right, well, we have our network switch in the room. Oh, so where's your video switch? Well, that's it. So I'm actually...
We're there with our audio systems now.
As I say, in terms of... you're right. In terms of Dante and everything.
Dante, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to see a turning point in that one because just recently our broadcast folks were very much, they need to have copper-to-copper connections, and they're very big about that. Even our broadcast folks have started looking and saying, yeah, no, we like Dante. And I kind of looked and I went, really? It's one of those like, you guys are actually getting into mix? Yeah, no, we actually like it too. We can have a network drop in the back of the room, and we can just plug that over and cross it over and go straight into the mixer. So it'll be interesting to see how this is going to go. Ernie, what are your feelings on this one?
Well, I want to see who is in the alliance. Is it the network guys? Is it Cisco, Brocade, those guys? Or is it Crestron, Extron?
I have the list here, actually.
Okay. Oh, is there a list now?
Yeah, on their site, actually, there's a FAQ. I had to dig around a little bit to see who was in it because I thought the same thing.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
But actually, yeah, so it's Optovision,
Sony, Netgear.
Aquanita, Christie Digital, Netgear, Sony, and ZV. So it's all people that really have a lot of interest in AV over IT. The people that don't want their matrix switchers to go away, like Crestron and Extron, are not in the alliance. So,
but neither are the, like I said, the network switch people. And until we see them in there, and it is a standard on our network switches.
Yeah,
because right now, unless it's a firmware upgrade, I've got 700 network switches and a couple hundred routers. Yep. And if they're talking about me using the same network to send our signals as the rest of the network, and they're talking about sending what was uncompressed, no latency 8K. Okay, what are the network engineers at going to say to me when I say I need to stream out of every auditorium and every classroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, So here's the thing. At least on the Avenue Alliance, I don't, as I say, I'm not sure if Cisco got involved with it, but I know Extreme Networks got certified in it. And Ernie's kind of hit the nail on the head with this one, in that once you see Cisco getting into it, and to a lesser degree, I would say like maybe Juniper Networks or something. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. When it comes to networking and your switches, Cisco is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So until they actually kind of look in and say, yeah, all right, we can work that into our systems and everything, or we can work that into our switches, it is a bit of a, oh, that's really cool. And it turns into, well, when you bring this up to your network engineers or your switch configurators, they're going to look and say, okay, which ports, how much bandwidth, and this and that. And if you can kind of say, well, it works with this switch, they're going to look and say, yeah, listen, we have a contract with this provider. We buy these switches. You speak my language. You're on my network. And it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, it's one of those, you have to learn to play nice in the sandbox. You can't just always say, well, we bought it and this has to work. No, if they say, hey, your stuff is a security issue and it didn't play right, and there was a way to exploit God, as I say, God help me on saying this one. If there was a way to exploit Extron's, Dante Mike XLR patch little one gang plate, I could guarantee our network folks would go and say, that's gone until you can do a firmware update. So I get where you're coming from with this one. Mike, what do you, as I say, what do you have to say?
Well, the article was an interesting read, that's for sure. But the more I started reading through it, the more I started thinking like Ernie, where I immediately thought, okay, who's in this alliance here? Because it's written like a press release that is written by people that are creating these chips and for AV over IT. When they start talking about how we can get rid of those pesky, expensive matrix switchers that are in every room and things like that, it's like, okay, what slant is this taking here?
Something tells me like there's an individual that would not surprise me if you click if you want a couple of pages further. Yeah, that might be Justin Kennington, which is very smart individual. But at the same time, Justin did come from Crestron, and he went over to AptoVision and everything. Right. And of course, their stuff is, hey, why don't you need a switcher? Well, your switch is your network switch, and which I won't let, once again, Aurora Multimedia has gone running hog wild with it, in which they have theirs is, if I believe correctly, is IP based T. Yeah. Which is it's fine. As I said, I've seen it. This stuff works. It's good. But it's one of those things of like everyone's going HD based T. Once again, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. It's one of those things where I'm kind of looking and watching in the same regard that everyone kind of saw how SVSI did their work. Yep. It's check it out, it's total loss latency, and it's everything's by the switcher. And I'm kind of looking and going, all right, let's see how big this can go before the engineers go and say it was never meant to do this. Right. So I'm waiting to see what the limit is, because if you have, say, off the top of my head, you have a command and control center and you try to sell this to them, you better hope that the 128 port switch can handle all the network traffic as well as all the AV traffic, right? Because otherwise you're going to have the NYPD breathing down your neck in no time. Not that I've ever been in that command center, not that I ever want to go back to that command center, not that makes you a bad person. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, it's just one of those. It's one of those things you look at, and it's interesting to see. Is it good that stuff's being formed together? Of course. Is it better to actually see who the backers are on it? Of course. I mean, just looking back for a second, you had like when DisplayPort first came out, obviously everyone kind of looked and said, what's the big deal about this? Well, it was royalty free, and then you suddenly started looking at who the backers were, such as like Intel and Lenovo and things like this, and it's only turned into, well, of course they're going to back this, and of course they're going to make this because they don't want to pay a licensing fee.
Mm-hmm.
So
and even the companies that aren't involved in it, like for example Crestron and Extron, this is really big on their radar, right? They're not just sitting on their hands going, let's just get blown out of the water by IP, AV over IP. So it's big on their radar, but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and with those companies too.
Yeah, it'll be, as I say, I'll say this. The thing that wouldn't surprise me is, at least on the Crestron and Extron side, is if you started seeing, well, for Crestron it'd be a card. For Extron, who are we kidding? It's a blade. They don't make anything smaller than a blade when it comes to the card slots. It would be interesting if they actually like suddenly said, oh yeah, here, you can put a card slot in for that. But yeah, we'll see.
Right.
So last on the list, it was just one of those little things. I can actually vouch for this from my own personal install, which will lead to a future thing here. This is from Commercial Integrator, and Crestron actually got into the modular amp business. Now, is it really like that shocking and everything? Not really. I mean, you had like Extron, who went and made their Energy Star qualified amps, and they were the first to really bring that out and say, hey, you can go green with this and everything. And next thing you know, you saw Crestron suddenly got into making into the amp business. Well, I take that back. They got into the amp business for the second time because I remember the first amp that at least I ever saw from them, and it was a 70 volt amp, and it was a one rack unit piece. It was nice and compact, except the only way that you could control it was via CrestNet. And I kind of looked and I went, do you guys at least have like an attenuator knob or something? They're like, no, you just do it via CrestNet. I'm like, wow, if the control system ever goes, you're really just like, that's just a world of hurt. Of course, the counter to that is if your control system went down, you kind of have bigger issues going on than just, the amp's not working. But
yeah.
But you can tell people the system went down if your amp's still working.
Yeah.
Touche, Ernie. Touche. So it's one of these things. It's getting into the more compact amp realm and everything. I mean, to a greater degree, Extron I think still is like the king of the mini amps, and the fact that they have like the quarter rack unit. I think like 15 or 20 watt amp, and which is great if you have just the single speaker, say in the room and everything, or the sound bar, and you want to fry it. Not that I've done that. Things happen in a pharmaceutical company, and you look and you go, oops. Anyway, so it's one of those things where I'm looking at, and it's definitely something I would say that they're trying to gear towards, mixed use rooms or larger classrooms in which you have, you can have one amp that's driving your program audio, and another amp that can drive, your voice lift system and everything, and and if anything, it's just more of the fact that it's a compact space. Now, the thing that I'm kind of looking and wondering when they get to is, and I know this is a wonderful thorn in their side, is them getting this kind of amp small enough to where they can make, say, the 2RU equivalent of the DMPS, which they have the DMPS 200, they have the DMPS 300, and they're both honking size units and everything. Yeah, they're big. I say, they're the ones that, if it falls on you, it won't kill you, but it'll definitely give you a concussion. But Extron went and made the 1608s, which I use them, and they're we've kind of pared down the amount of inputs we have. So to a certain degree, it is a bit of a boulder killing an ant. However, in a lot of spaces, we do need voice lift, and because Extron's able to add in an amp as well into the switcher, and it's only 2 RUs. So for us, we're looking to go, yeah, no, 1 RU does make that big of a difference when we only have 10 to work with. So,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I'm looking at it and saying, it's good that they've got these modular amps down. I'm wondering when eventually they're going to get to the 2 RU rack size, working that in. But that's just my own theory. I've been known to be wrong.
Well, I like that. I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, if they can take that and incorporate it and make some of their larger devices smaller, they're all-in-one units, the DMPS type devices. I think that would be a big plus.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm thinking, I like having a small constant voltage amp, but this is basically taking the amp that I usually sit on top of a projector, just for me, and putting it in the rack. Okay, that's what you're doing. If I've got voice lift and media reinforcement sound, I'm going for a bigger amp than this.
Fair enough.
But like I said, I really like your thought about taking that and reducing the size of the DMPS units, because those are killers. When you need to putting a whole system inside a lectern, when 2/3 of it is your AV processor.
Yeah, we in fact, I found out the hard way on a separate job site. We had the Middle Atlantic credenza, the C5 racks.
Yeah.
And we had to make sure we had the deep well versions in order to make sure that it fit.
Those DMPSs are deep, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're I think they take up like the same depth as the DM switchers themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
On top of that, I'm also happy in the fact that they eventually got around to putting in a proper 3 series processor in the DMPSs. Mostly because it turns out that they used to use the processors from the QM RMCs, which back in the day were wonderful. I love those because it was just, here you go, throw it in. Hey, I can now remote the room and everything. Throwing it onto that big honker of a unit, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, folks live, they learn, they grow from this, and like I said, I'm seeing those amps, and I'm seeing the amps as a means of Crestron kind of shrinking the profile of some of their stuff, which would be nice because we with us, rack space is turning into a bit of a luxury. Although I'm happy that we finally got rid of our VHS DVD combos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got tired of searching on eBay for those. So
that's 2 rack units there. You're freed up.
Oh, 2.
Yeah, the worst 2.5 or something. So it's like great.
We would use 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to buy the Middle Atlantic shelf that took up 3 to hold the. 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was exactly 2 RUs tall.
Right, and then now you have a clamp.
Yeah.
So the good thing too with rack space here with these new Crestron amps is that they incorporate the power supply into the amp. So it's an IEC connector rather than an external power supply that you need to find a shelf for to stash it in there. So saving a little more room. But then the amps look deeper than other amps. So it's just, so either the power supply is in the amp or not, but either way, you're taking up a little bit of room in there. So.
Yeah. Now, The other thing that I will say this, Extron does this, and I've seen it implemented in New York City, and not exclusively there, but it's one of those things I looked and I said, all right, I understand why you're doing it, but you're really tethering yourself. Is some of the Extron amps have it to where you can actually wire a power whip directly into it.
Right.
For plenum ceilings and everything. And believe me, I get it. In New York City, it's the more just kind of set it and forget it, put it up there is great. But if that amp goes, man, I hope they have like one of those Surgex inline or power conditioners, at the breaker box, because otherwise, there was a power failure or a power spike. Hey, how come the sound doesn't work? Oh, we got to call a union electrician for this.
Right.
And in New York City, that's, there's the, don't get me wrong. They do some jobs that I look and I go and say, I'm glad I don't do that work. But at the same time, man, that's not a cheap repair call. So,
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I'll look at this and, it says no more rack shelves, terminating power connectors or external power supplies. Well, if I'm putting an amp in a rack, usually none of those things come to mind because I'm buying one that already has that. Why? I never have understood why, you have to buy rack shelves, things like that. Sure and Listen had it down. Their half RU width would always gain together. And they came with a rack gear and an extended rack gear, so you could do it any way you wanted.
Right.
And why? It's not that hard. How much does that little L bracket cost?
Yeah.
It's some easy folded metal, and I won't lie. Like Extron makes a boatload of them that have all their various screw caps. It's you look and you're like, oh, how much is the Deepwell one? All of $20.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things of like, oh, you're saving this much. It's like, are you really? So
yeah.
That aside, just a quick little note and everything. Ernie, did you have any surprising projects that popped up during winter break, or was it fairly smooth sailing?
I guess the surprising part was we did a classroom and we just tried some new things in this room. First time we put Dante in a small classroom, and we used the Shure MXW series mics for the first time. Once again, in a small classroom, where you put an APT in the ceiling and leave it at that. And there were a little bit of hiccups with that, but the project finished a week ahead of time.
Nice.
I think that was the amazing part.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
We're having classes in there, and we're not supposed to give the room back for another week and a half. So we've already given it to them, told them they can schedule it, and they've started putting people in there. So.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm gonna wrap it up with this one. We actually had a quick one in which we renovated a lecture hall, and we were starting to play around with the voice speakers and everything. It was the first time we had put in voice lift speakers in this room, and the folks installed it in and everything, and we started playing with the DSP. The moment that the voice mic started kicking in, it just started clipping, like almost as soon as we started talking above normal voice, and we're like, what's going on? And we open it up. Oh, the speaker cable got shredded by the wire mold. All right, all right, repull the cable, that'll fix it. I was like, no, that would have shorted it out. All right. So we're playing around, and eventually I look at our guys and I said, did you guys set the taps? I kind of looked at me and went, taps?
What taps?
Yeah, they're like, what taps? And I went, I was like, you guys know this is a 70-volt system, right? They're like, no, we thought it was regular 8-ohm. I went,
yeah.
So it was, luckily enough, the grills pop off easy enough because they were like magnetic. They were magnetic sealed and everything, and it was just a couple of quick tweaks with the tweaker. But it's just one of those ones. I'm like, if that's the worst of what happened to me during winter break, I'm like, I'm doing well. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, that's the time we have for this month. Ernie, where can the folks find you or reach you at?
You can find me on LinkedIn most of the time.
All right. Mr. Tomei, where can they find you at?
I'm on LinkedIn, and also my website is tomeiav.com. It's TOMEIAV.com.
All right.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm Bill O'Donnell. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Twitter at the original OD. So I want to say thanks to everyone, especially thanks to Mr. Ernie Bailey. Thanks to Mr. Mike Tomei. Once again, EDtech is a monthly podcast on AVNation. By all means, check out all the other episodes that we have on AVNation. This is currently episode 49. If you get a chance, also check out, there's the AV Week, there's also Resi Week, and my other personal favorite is State of Control. So once again, thank you guys, and have a good month.